Hey there, 6th grade. In this next video, we're going to talk about what we mean by the word proportions. So we have a scenario in the top here that we're going to read. It says, students in Mr. Howell's math class are measuring the width and length of their heads. The ratio of length to width is 10 inches to 6 inches for Jean and 25 centimeters to 15 centimeters for Pat. And so we know from the last couple of videos that ratios can be represented as fractions. So we're going to write these two ratios as fractions. So for Jean, the ratio would be 10 to 6. Okay, the length of Jean's head is 10 inches and the width is 6 inches according to this ratio. So 10 to 6. And then the ratio for Pat's is 25 to 15. If I simplify both of these ratios, well, 10 over 6 will simplify to 5 over 3, so that ratio becomes 5 to 3, and 25 over 15 will simplify to 5 over 3, so that ratio is also 5 to 3. So we get simplified ratios of 5 to 3 for both. Because both of these ratios simplify to the same ratio, 5 to 3, then these ratios are what are known as equivalent ratios. Okay, equivalent ratios are just those that simplify to the same ratio. So in order to determine if two different ratios are equivalent, we reduce them to simplest form. And if they are equivalent, then they will both reduce to the same ratio. We're also going to talk about a new vocabulary word in this video, and that vocabulary word is what's called a proportion. A proportion is an equation that states that two ratios are equivalent. Okay, an equation that states that two ratios are equivalent. And so if we have two ratios that are equivalent, we can say that they are proportional to each other. So that's what you're going to see in the directions down here. For examples 1 and 2, it's going to ask you to determine whether the ratios are proportional, and that just means, are these ratios equivalent ratios? So we have 2/7 and 6/21, or should I say 2 to 7 and 6 to 21. So I'm going to write these and attempt to reduce both of them. Well, 2 to 7 won't reduce any further, so that's already in simplest form. 6 to 21 will reduce if I divide both 6 and 21 by 3. And so that ratio reduces to 2 to 7. So because we have a 2 to 7 ratio for both of these, once we've reduced, then these ratios we say are proportional. Okay, number 2, we have 8 to 24 and 6 to 20. So both of these ratios can be reduced further. 8 to 24, we can divide both 8 and 24 by 8, and this reduces to the ratio 1 to 3. 6 to 20, we can divide both by 2, and that reduces to 3 to 10. Because these are different ratios, once we've simplified them, then we would say no, these ratios are not proportional. Okay, example 3, we have a table here that tells us the number of cups of oats to cups of water in a certain number of servings of oatmeal. So we're going to use this table to determine whether the ratio of oats to water are proportional for both servings of oatmeal. So we have two different serving sizes here. You could have 8 servings of oatmeal, you could also have 12 servings of oatmeal. And remember, we're doing the ratio of oats to water. So for 8 servings, the ratio of oats to water is 2 to 4. Okay, there are 2 cups of oats for every 4 cups of water. For the 12 servings, the ratio is 3 to 6. There are 3 cups of oats to every 6 cups of water. So to determine whether these ratios are proportional, again, we'll reduce them. 2 over 4 reduces to the ratio 1 to 2, and 3 to 6 reduces to the ratio 1 to 2 as well. So these ratios both reduce to the same ratio, 1 to 2, and so that means that yes, these ratios are proportional to each other. You can find equivalent ratios by either multiplying or dividing the numerator or denominator of a ratio by the same number. Okay, multiplying or dividing the numerator, we should say and denominator, numerator and denominator of a ratio by the same number. And you did this a little bit on one of your previous problem sets where it asked you in the spiral review section to find 3 equivalent fractions for a given fraction. Okay, so this is going to be the same concept down here. We're just replacing the word fraction with the word ratio. So examples 4 and 5, the directions say find a ratio equivalent to each given ratio, and then use the ratios to write a proportion. So there's a lot of different possibilities here. For number 4, we have the ratio 8 to 14. So I can do 2 things. I can reduce this ratio to simplest form. That's one way to get an equivalent ratio. Or I can multiply both the numerator and the denominator by really any number I want, as long as it's the same on the top and the bottom. And that will also give me an equivalent ratio. So let's try that first method. Let's just reduce this. I can reduce 8 to 14 by dividing the top and bottom both by 2. And so that gives me 4 to 7. 8 to 14 and 4 to 7 are equivalent ratios. And so I can represent that by writing a proportion, and all that means is I'm writing that 8 to 14 equals 4 to 7. Okay, remember a proportion is just an equation, so we have an equal sign here that makes this an equation that states that 2 ratios are equal. So that's one example of a proportion for this problem. There's a lot of different other possibilities. Okay, for instance, instead of simplifying this ratio, I could have multiplied both the numerator and denominator. I could have multiplied both by 2. And so when I do that, I get the ratio 16 to 28. And so another proportion I could have written would have been the original ratio 8 to 14 equals 16 to 28. So there's an endless number of possibilities here that you could write for your proportions. Okay, as long as the ratios on both sides of the equal sign are equivalent, meaning they end up reducing to the same ratio in the end, those would be correct statements. Okay, so for number 5, we can try that with 4 to 18. I could reduce 4 to 18, dividing both the top and the bottom by 2, and then I get 2 to 9. So one possibility is 4 to 18 equals 2 to 9. I could also multiply the numerator and denominator. I could multiply by 2, or I could multiply by 3 even. Okay, if I do that, 4 times 3 is 12. 18 times 3 is 54, so I get the ratio 12 to 54. So I could also write the proportion 4 to 18 equals 12 to 54. Okay, so lots of different ways and lots of different possibilities for equivalent ratios. You just have to find one and then write your proportion. If you had any questions over this video, make sure you've written those down. And until we see you the next time, have a nice day. You're all wonderful people. Take care.